the last meeting that we had on this tobacco thing, I was cornered by policy makers, administrators, and lawyers. I was singled out. And there was a discussion on electronic cigarettes, electronic nicotinic devices, where they did not know that I was sitting there. And I gave them sufficient evidence why it was banned. Where's the next, please? So why was I am with you? Because this white paper, which came by, which was ICMR paper on this ban. This was under the chairmanship of Dr. Srinath Reddy, which I was one of the expert member, who threadbare discussed the role of electronic cigarettes. And in next 7 minutes, I'll emphasize on you why this August committee recommended to the government that electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes should be banned in this country. And it was amazing that the government of India came out with an ordinance after going through this white paper. And that day I didn't get sufficient time, as Mr. Anil said, to prove my point today. Thank you so much for bringing me here. So this is what it is. What is electronic cigarette? Of course, this in August gathering I need not say. It's actually resembles a cigarette or a cigar. It has got various fancy shapes, and it has a battery. It has a solution. This solution contains nicotine. Along with this, there is a propellant solution, which are hydrocarbons. I need not name them. So when a person inhales, he has a feeling of smoking a cigarette. He gets a nicotine, which is an addicting substance. But along with this, he gets a uncontrolled amount of hydrocarbons, the chemicals. So the harmful effects are that not because of nicotine. I am not talking about that. Of course, nicotine is a harmful substance. It does cause addiction and all those things. But the thinking behind is that person is addicted to nicotine. The tobacco cigarette or beedi or whatever contains about 4,000 to 7,000 chemicals, which are causing lung cancer, cardiovascular disease, and so on and so forth. So why not give him nicotine minus the other substances, so that he continues to enjoy nicotine but does not get the harmful effects. But the e-cigarettes affects almost all the parts of the body, and typical cartridge contains about 20 cigarettes, equal to 20 cigarettes of nicotine. And when the person inhales, he does not know how much cigarettes he is smoking in one go. It's an uncontrolled amount. And there are various amount of carcinogens, which include acetaldehyde, formaldehyde, acetone, etc., etc., etc. And there are chemicals which have potential to cause fire. And it has been shown in the animal experiment that these e-cigarettes, when they did a biopsy of the mucosa, they have a carcinogenic effect. They make the DNA change into the malignancy. So I need not recite all those things, and it can rarely cause explosion also. And there are reports of deaths caused by e-cigarettes. With that, the USFDA have said that it demonstrated the presence of diethylene glycol on some ants, which can lead to mass poisoning and deaths if inadvertently substituted. And there were additional presence of genotoxins and animal carcinogens, which are proven by the studies. And it's a matter of great concern. That is what USFDA has said. Now, studies on use of e-cigarettes, I'll be talking about it, because unless I tell you some evidence, you will not believe. In 2018 in United States, 21% of high school students and 5% of middle school students reported to have used e-cigarettes in last 30 days. India, the data are not there, but the people who actually have the knowledge, it's being used and abused despite being banned, as Ms. Sajana pointed in the beginning. And WHO report showed that the use of ants amongst non-smoking, I want you to understand, non-smoking use have increased by a factor of 5 to 8. Now, impact on young minds. How does it? You know, when you talk of harm reduction, it starts at the teenage, because majority of smoking starts in the teenage. The use of ends by minor doubles their chances of starting smoking, because they hook to the smoking nicotine, and then cigarettes are so easy to get. If they don't get this, they will go for the cigarette. Therefore, this is a significant public health concern. Now, does e-cigarette leads to quitting cigarettes? That's a big question. We are talking of harm reduction today, and that's the evidence. The youths using ends or e-cigarettes are more likely to use regular cigarette later. That's one thing. In a never smoker person, e-cigarette increases the likelihood of experiment with regular tobacco products and increase intention to indulge in cigarette smoking. They also increase the risk of dual use due to lack of awareness about the harmful effects of ends. So if it doesn't stop there, Dr. Sunita Mittal is there, it affects the pregnant woman and the fetus. And it also, there's a risk to the fetus, infant and child brain development. And these are all scientific studies. Now, as we talk about second-hand smoke with the tobacco, similarly, the harm due to second-hand exposure to e-cigarettes is also there, and passive exposure to vapors during pregnancy can severely affect the health of both the mother and the fetus. There are reports of poisoning due to accidental swallowing by the children.
So you have 1 minute.
Yeah, all right. Gateway to nicotine addiction and smoking. That's the final part of my presentation. Youths using ends and e-cigarettes are more likely to use regular cigarette later. E-cigarette increase the likelihood of experiment with regular tobacco products. Also, there is an increased risk of dual use due to lack of awareness. So, electronic delivery system as a tobacco cessation. This is the final slide. Although some smokers have reported reduction in their tobacco smoking, e-cigarette seems to have rather similar or even weaker efficacy as a cessation aids when compared to nicotine patches. So if you compare with the nicotine patches, they are less effective, more harmful. And in a 4-country survey carried in the United States, Canada and Australia, 70% of the study subjects reported to have used ends as a way to obtain nicotine in smoke-free spaces. So what they do is that they smoke, but wherever the tobacco smoking is not allowed, they use e-cigarettes, and so they are actually not using it smoking reduction. So recommendation from the national and international organization, the International Association on Lung Cancer, which is the biggest killer, have said that use of e-cigarettes for treating nicotine dependence even in cancer patients is not recommended. The Indian Medical Association considers ends as an unhealthy and disguised form of tobacco addiction with serious long-term health effects and unfit to use for tobacco cessation. Now, Indian perspective is in India, use of nicotine, an ingredient in any food item, is prohibited under the law. Not because of this. As such, nicotine is banned. Nicotine and nicotine sulfate are listed as hazardous chemicals under the Environment Protection Act. So, conclusion of the expert committee, which met, as I said, based on this is exactly verbatim from that document. Based on the currently available scientific data from the multiple streams of research, the Council recommends complete prohibition of ends or e-cigarettes in India in the greater interest of the protecting public health in accordance with the precautionary principles preventing public harm from noxious agents. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us do end to end, that is, end the electronic nicotine devices. Thank you.